Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. Ukraine is preparing to receive its first NATO deliveries of Patriot missiles and HIMARS launchers under a new financing mechanism as drone strikes and regional tensions remain a daily reality. Now, to help us analyze all this further and what it means, we're joined by Mariya Zolkina, Head of Regional Security and Conflict Studies at the Democratic Initiatives Foundation and Associate Research Fellow at LSE Ideas. Welcome back to TVP World. Good to have you.
Good morning. Thanks for the invitation.
Mariya, let's begin with this news, this new mechanism here, a NATO mechanism funded through allies' prioritized Ukraine requirement list. It's a mouthful, but it gives billions of dollars worth of equipment. Right now, Zelensky said, we're hearing that these Patriot batteries are coming. We also hear HIMARS are coming. So what does this mean operationally? What kind of impact will this have for Ukraine?
So operationally, nothing is going to change besides of the real scheme from what sources it has been financed. So the new scheme has arisen from the political decision of Donald Trump not to give any kind of grants for Ukraine, not to use the Lend-Lease form, which wasn't really operationally used by Biden administration, but is not used by Trump administration as well. So the political decision of Trump has started this new scheme with his decision to be rather a moderator in Russia-Ukraine talks than just be an ally of Ukraine like it was before. And the second part of the strategic decision, not to give anything for free, but rather to sell the equipment and any types of new military aid on a commercial basis. And Europe, whether they wanted that or not, but they are more interested collectively in Ukraine to be sustainable in terms of military aid and to be still able to repel Russia's attacks. So Europe is the party in this scheme to pay for that kind of equipment, which US is selling basically to Ukraine through NATO umbrella.
Mm-hmm. Right, but in all of that, I think ultimately, I mean, this is good news in your mind. I mean, you said operationally, how long do you think this kind of equipment would take to make a difference? I mean, as Ukraine continues to reel from drone attacks, from missile attacks.
I wouldn't say that this is for good, first and foremost, because this is a new era of political relations between the United States of America and Europe collectively on the other hand. So Europe is basically the main partner right now to be responsible. The European members of NATO are the main countries responsible, for military aid for Ukraine and for financial aid for Ukraine. From this point of view, I wouldn't say that this is ultimately a positive turn, but the problem was that US was at the very beginning of the year, the first couple of months of Trump ruling in the country. We started from a much worse point, politically speaking, when there was totally unclear whether US will be even selling the Patriots, for instance, or other US produced military equipment to Ukraine, and we have had a pause in deliveries of the previously agreed packages, and we had no certainty whether US would be even ready to sell this. So that was kind of a compromise. US is not giving this for free, just sell it on a commercial basis. Europe is paying for this, and NATO scheme, NATO umbrella is politically used for that instead of Ramstein coordination scheme, which was in place right until the end of 2024.
Mm-hmm. I understand that the urgency is on now. There's still obviously concern that Trump could change his mind again. But nevertheless, as you've alluded to as well, this does have the backing of Donald Trump. In a way, this is the political continuation. This is also an involvement of NATO. I think something that in itself is quite lends itself, in my sort of observation, as a good sign. Zelensky himself said there'd be another this fund, it's $3.5 billion up until October. I know that the urgency is now, but as a political statement and as a sign of more to come, could this be something positive, or do you still see it as not enough?
From this point of view, that's really a kind of political compromise with rather positive effect than negative effects and risks. And involvement of NATO operationally is also important. And I would remind that this was well prepared. I mean, this kind of exchange of Ramstein format as a coordination umbrella for military aid of Ukraine for the NATO umbrella. This was prepared and decided by the NATO member states last year. Politically speaking, well, because they were expecting that Trump at that time probably would be a new president of US, and European leaders were really afraid, and Biden administration was afraid at that time that Ramstein would be a dead format, and they wanted, kind of upgrade the framework under which or within which these operational issues about military aid are, discussed and decided. So this is also an upgrade. So it's a positive one. Okay. But political will of US still plays a role here. For this reason, we do observe other mechanisms being developed right now these days and these weeks and being agreed under the European Union umbrella, in particular the SAFE project, under which almost 150 billion of euros for the next years is allocated for defense capacities and boosting defense industries within the EU. And this is to a great extent to help Ukraine to stop Russia where Russia is at now, rather than allow Russia to attack any other EU member state. And UK is being right now is negotiating right now UK engagement with this new SAFE project with European Union. So we do see that defense capacities boosting idea is uniting right now. European Union member states plus UK. This is kind of a new defense framework is being emerged.
Right, and of course it's critical now with President Trump in London. He'll for sure have also the ear of not just the king but the prime minister. And as we've alluded to earlier, Keir Starmer has been very much a supporter of closer cooperation with Ukraine. So we'll see how that plays out in Trump's mindset. Let's also talk about Kyiv for a moment, because we have also, speaking of operations, the Polish Minister of Defense, Mr. Kamysz, who is meeting his counterpart in Kiev. There's going to be consultation. He's brought with him quite a large delegation of high-level military officials on that trip. They're clearly going to be talking about Ukraine's experience as well on deflecting and striking back against drones. What more do you think? What kind of signal does it send? What we can expect from this visit? What this all means in the whole regional context here?
Here, I think that these visits, both of Minister of Defense and previous, the recent visit of Minister for Foreign Affairs of Poland to Kyiv as well, this is really a positive signal, because in the times of political tensions around the assistance to Ukraine, around Ukrainians in Poland, around Polish, policy towards assistance to Ukraine and Ukrainians, this is a very good positive signal, first and foremost showing that there are fundamental issues right now. These are defense and security, regional security, which constitute the common interest for two states, and where cooperation is much more beneficial for both sides than being focused on other political, cultural, even historical points which are dividing two states or two societies right now. When Ukraine offered its help to Poland after this drone attack on Polish airspace, that was really well argued proposal, because every night Ukraine is shutting down from around several dozens, 100 up to 700-800 drones somewhere on some days. And of course, practically speaking, Ukraine has much better anti-drone system right now developed by Ukrainian defense forces on the ground. Like even small units are working on their own equipment, their own anti-drone technologies, and this is much better than in any other NATO member state. This is the practical truth of this war. And this is new phase of the war because Russia is using new technologies and Ukraine is simultaneously developing something to repel these attacks, in particular drone attacks. So I do expect that unpublic and closed part of this conversation in Kyiv would be exactly about this kind of cooperation, and I hope this will turn out to be a common joint enterprises, or at least enterprise aimed at production of drones or anti-drones technologies.
Right.
This
On that
is
note, I
another
just want to ask you,
scheme.
sorry, because I still want to ask you something critical, and I think that a lot will come out of that meeting, as you said, as Ukraine has that experience. Speaking also, I mean, recently we had the Zapad exercises in Belarus. Also, that has been something that Western Alliance has been looking at. We also found out there have been military observers there, U.S. observers as well. How do you see this? And I'm curious also, in your view, looking at where peace talks are. We have the Zapad exercises, as you mentioned, the drones. Where are we with all this? How this is combined? Zapad ending, and also where we are with peace talks from your view.
Well, everyone remembers that the attack on Ukraine started from Zapad exercises back in 2021, after which Russia simply didn't bring back all the military units which they brought to the borders of Ukraine and to Belarus territory back then almost 4 years ago. So that's why these concerns are not groundless. But if to speak how this is like part of the whole picture, so when Russia is negotiating, this is the golden rule of Russian foreign policy and diplomacy. When they are negotiating, they're pushing much harder. They're making their vis-a-vis scared with much worse scenarios, military scenarios, first of all. From the Russian logic, starting from beginning of 90s, and in case of Ukraine from 2013, this is the normal. If they're negotiating with Trump, they raise the stakes. They ask much more than they have achieved on the military battlefield for 11 years, like volunteer withdrawal of Ukrainian defense forces from Donbas, which Russia didn't succeed to do in 11 years as of now. So they raise the stakes diplomatically. They increase the intensity of the warfare on the ground in Ukraine,
Right.
and they started testing the NATO's response in Poland. And of course, they use Zapad exercises.
Testing NATO, that's, I think, the key word there. And of course, we'll have to be vigilant. Look, there's more to discuss. Unfortunately, we have to close it there. We're running out of time. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure for your analysis. That was Mariya Zolkina. Much appreciated. And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but there's much more coming up right here on TVP World, so don't go away.